We are fishers and farmers. You're going to hear a little bit from me today, but you're also going to hear from Heidi, who is our co-coordinator, and Jack Lauer, who is one of our longtime steering committee members. So between the three of us, we're going to kind of walk you through all of it is that we do. On the call today, we're just going to give you some brief introductions for ourselves. Like I said, talk about the history and the mission of Fishers and Farmers, and then dive into that RFP and the funding, and then talk a little bit about our past projects. What have we funded in the past, and specifically highlighting a couple of, or one of Jack's projects. He is out of Minnesota, so highlighting one of his projects that was funded. And then, like I said, a lot of time for questions and answers, so don't be shy. This is me. I'm Amy Smith. My day job, I am the sustainability director for Habitat for Humanity out of La Crosse. But I've been with Fishers and Farmers since 2014 as the communications lead. And just this past year, took on a co-coordinator role to help Heidi with her day-to-day operations.
Hi, everyone. I'm Heidi Quiller. I wear two hats. I work at the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service in La Crosse, Wisconsin. I work on lake sturgeon restoration, Topeka shiner work, some walleye, freshwater mussels, and we work with the refuges, the tribes, Genoa Fish Hatchery, and many other federal and state partners. And then the other hat that I wear is I coordinate Fishers and Farmers, and I've been coordinating since about 2010. And I work on putting the agreements in place for the National Fish Habitat Partnership Program and Fishers and Farmers funding. So if you'll join us during this process, I am the one that'll be helping you along with getting the proposals in. I'll also be helping with permitting, project oversight, and then also the project wrap up, and as well as I help with the Fishers and Farmers meeting coordination and everything else Fishers and Farmers.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining the Fishers and Farmers call. My name is Jack Lauer. I work for the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources. I'm a fisheries regional manager. What is a regional manager? If you fish or angle, you understand that someone's taking care of our lakes, rivers, and streams. Every state has a DNR, Department of Conservation. There are fish scientists and biologists and managers that deal with those issues directly for recreational waters. That's me. That's the fishes part of Fishers and Farmers. You'll find that on the steering committee, we have agency folks like myself. I've been with Fishers and Farmers 2008 is when we were just ramping up to have our first strategic plan completed and trying to get national recognition from the National Fish Habitat Partnership out of DC. My role is, I've been at it for 15 years, but really guiding projects on the ground with landowners on private property, much like what you'll hear from me later in this call, but is helping landowners choose what types of practices would improve soil health, improve farming practices, and then downstream improve the stream and the fish itself. So it is an NGO. I can honestly say, as a career of 38 years with the Minnesota DNR as a fish person, this particular partnership really got me excited to join the Upper Mississippi River Basin to work with people in the entire Upper Mississippi on just finding solutions, helping to pick away at watersheds where we're trying to make improvements on the land and in the water, and basically the fish. That's our bioindicator. If the fishery isn't improving, we're doing some good work. So back to Heidi or Amy. Thanks.
Thanks, Jack. So who is Fishers and Farmers? We are, like Jack said, we're an NGO, and we work in the Upper Mississippi River Basin in all 5 states, including Illinois, Iowa, Minnesota, Missouri, and Wisconsin. We've been around since about 2009. We were formally recognized by the National Fish Habitat Partnership. Our funding comes through the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, so it is federal, but it is a little more flexible than some of the other federal funding that you may have already worked with, such as NRCS or USGS and some of the other different programs. We have members that are in both natural resources, such as the state departments of natural resources, like Jack, as well as Missouri Department of Conservation. We also have agricultural groups, such as the Iowa Soybean Association, and I see Brandon is on today. So we hope maybe later there'll be a few more minutes that some of the steering committee members from the Fishers and Farmers can maybe answer some of the questions that all of you have. We have two co-chairs. We really believe in a balance of both natural resources and agriculture. So one of our co-chairs is Sherry Fisher, who works with Missouri Department of Conservation. And our other co-chair is Terry Spence, who is a grass-fed beef producer in north central Missouri. We really like to see that both of the co-chairs, come from the same state, and then that rotates around all 5 states. So it gives each state an opportunity to really help lead fishers and farmers and provide excellent guidance to all of our partners. So our priorities are to bring farmers and biologists to the table in a new way to improve aquatic habitat for fish and mussels. We really believe in being innovative or creative in bringing these projects to the table. And these projects will help protect intact, healthy waters, restore natural variability in streams, reconnect fragmented streams, reduce sediment and nutrient delivery into the streams and rivers. And we really want to provide an opportunity for a diverse partner group to come in and work together and collaborate. And we believe that we are a catalyst in helping tip the balance to better streams and fish habitat. And you can see some of our priorities that are listed there. Fishers and Farmers, you can see, is one of 20 national fish habitat partnerships. We are right in the upper Mississippi River Basin. You can see on your screen the diagonal lines there. Number 6 is Fishers and Farmers. In the middle, you can see number 4, that's the driftless area restoration effort. They are within our boundaries, and we work together with them also on fish habitat projects. DEER tends to focus a little bit more on cold water trout streams, where Fishers and Farmers tends to branch out a little bit more into smallmouth bass, maybe some of the warmer water streams. We like to see that more projects come in some of those warm water areas because there isn't always that many opportunities for funding to come in for that type of habitat. Next slide, Amy. Fishers and Farmers has funding available every year. It comes through the National Fish Habitat Partnership. And we have, it kind of changes every year. We do have to apply for the funding ourselves, so it is competitive funding. But it's usually around $200,000 to $300,000, and we are usually able to fund about 4 to 7 projects or so. We like to fund projects in each of our 5 states if we can. The funding floor is set at $15,000, and the ceiling we bumped up to $100,000. Projects are usually around $40,000 to $50,000 or more. It just depends on what the different projects are. We fund both dirt moving projects, such as stream bank stabilization, oxbow restoration, but we also fund non-dirt moving projects or social projects, if you will, such as workshops for farmers, different monitoring projects. We do have a requirement of cost share. At least a one-to-one non-federal match is required, but we really would like to see more. So a 3-to-1 is desired. If you do have higher cost share, your project usually ranks out a little bit higher. All right, next slide, Amy. Eligible expenditures. Like I said earlier, we fund both construction projects and non-construction projects. So we can fund project planning. Although if a project comes in that's strictly just only project planning, I'm not sure that it'll rank really high with the steering committee. Our steering committee is made up of about 18 to 20 people in all 5 states, like I said earlier, and they decide which projects are funded. I, as a coordinator, don't rank any of the projects. It's our steering committee members. And so other projects that we will fund or other eligible expenditures include equipment, not farming equipment. However, we don't really want this funding to be spent on a plow, for example, or other kinds of farm equipment. Equipment there, we're talking more like monitoring equipment and those kind of things. We can also fund earthwork, materials for the different project, monitoring, evaluation, outreach, and pretty new are easements. We can work with the different partners. We, fishers and farmers, would not be in control of those easements. It would be one of our state partners or NGOs that would control that easement. And we can, if anyone has more questions on these easements, we can talk more later. I'm always available for phone calls and emails after the call. Next slide, Amy. The project timeline, we release our RFP every year. So this funding that we're talking about currently is actually for fiscal year 25. The National Fish Habitat Partnership has extended this timeline a little bit longer than it has been in the past, where the funding that we're going after right now, the current RFP is for 2025. The projects for 2024 have already been approved and will be put into place coming in June. So if you look at the timeline right now, the RFP is open and all the project proposals are due January 15th. So anytime before then, feel free to give me a call and I can work with you through the project proposal template, which is located on our website at the top of the page. There's a green bar that runs along the top of our website, and you can find both the request for proposals as well as the project proposal template. So all you have to do is click on those links and you'll find both of those located there. Once you send in your proposal, I will send it to the different state representatives, and they take a look and see how it aligns with their state priorities, their state wildlife action plans, and other different work projects that they are working on. And a lot of times those state reps will also reach out to you and talk about your project, and they'll help you work through that as well before the deadline, which is January 15th again. Once the project proposals are in and sent to the state reps, we do send them all to the steering committee members. We come together for an in-person meeting, and the steering committee members will discuss each of the projects. The project proposals also, the project leads, if you will also call in to a Microsoft Teams call and have a chance to present their project to the steering committee live. It is a great opportunity to see kind of some of the pictures and maybe lay out the budget a little bit better for the steering committee. It's so much nicer than just having a proposal in hand. It's kind of nice, an opportunity for the steering committee members to ask questions to the project leads and get a better feel of the project. I feel that this has been working really well over the past 10 years or so of our funding periods. And it's a great opportunity just to learn a lot about each of the projects. And usually what we ask is that the project lead will have about 10 to 15 minutes to present their project, and then we have a question and answer session right after. And I can, if anyone has more questions about that, I would be happy to field any of those questions as well. So the steering committee ranks those projects in January, and then we send them off to the National Fish Habitat Partnership, and then they will approve those projects as well. Once they have approved the projects, they send it off to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service for final approval to make sure that they are aligned with our program. Finally, the announcement of the awards comes in January of 2025. So it is about a full year before you hear of any funding. And then the agreements will be awarded in June of 2025. So that we hope that, it is a long process, but we're open. We understand things change as far as match that is brought in with the partners. So we're willing to work with you, and we're willing to work with you to get you into our funding systems. We work through Grant Solutions, which is a grant program that we work with, and I help you through that whole process. So no need to worry. I'm there pretty much through the whole process. All right, next slide, Amy. And we're going to take questions at the end of this too, so feel free, or also feel free to type them into the chat at any time, and Amy will be checking those during this call. Project ranking criteria. So you might be wondering, what does the steering committee look for with each of these projects? So one of the things that they look for, how your project aligns with our goals and objectives of Fishers and Farmers Partnership and the goals and objectives of the National Fish Habitat Partnership. So they will be looking at those, and you can also find those in our strategic plan, which is also located on our website. And I highly recommend taking a look at our strategic plan at our goals and objectives. Also, if you go and you take a look at our request for proposals, it's also the strategic plan is linked in that as well. So other things that our steering committee looks for in those projects proposals are priority fish species, types of habitat, also priority areas, and that'll be coming up in a couple of slides here. Also, deliverables, what you hope to accomplish with your project. Also, if you have project evaluation and monitoring, which is required in our project proposals. We also look at life expectancy, how it improves the farm and the fish habitat. We like to see multiple farmers involved. We like to, all these projects we like to see on private lands. As you know, in all five states of the upper Mississippi River, most of the land is private land. And so we really would like to see that you're working with multiple farmers. The steering committee also looks at the matching fund or the leveraging, cost sharing. They look to see that you have a reasonable budget. And they also see if you're working with fishers and farmers in other ways. If you go to our website, you'll also see opportunities for workshops, podcasts, and events. And so we have farmer workshops. And if you're participating in some of these, you may receive some extra bonus points in the ranking process. Amy, next slide, please. We do have priority watersheds in the upper Mississippi River Basin for fishers and farmers, and you'll see them listed here. They include everything from the Minnesota River to the Red Cedar in Wisconsin and Pinot Creek in Missouri. These were selected by our state representatives and non-government organizations. A lot of them are relating to the state wildlife action plans and watershed plans that our partners are working on. Now, if your project isn't located in these watersheds, that's okay. We are looking for new priority watersheds as well. So these watersheds listed here received priority, but all other watersheds will be considered. Next slide, Amy. All right, I think I'm done with my part of the talk, and I will hand it back over to Jack. Thank you.
Thank you. I got you, Heidi. Leave that on the screen for a second, Amy. Amy's got the control of the mouse from La Crosse, Wisconsin area. So the different types of projects, Fishers and Farmers funds, it's a wide array. I really encourage you, if you're a guest thinking about a project or you know of a project, it's in search of the hard thing, the money. How are we going to get it done? Does Fishers and Farmers just fund dirt moving? No, we fund several things. The outreach. Heidi just mentioned having podcasts and engagement. I mean, that's some of the networking you can do within a group. But ultimately, all the work that we generally fund had been in the past on private land. We now expanded to allow some of our work on public lands. But really, it comes down to the landowner, whether it's a row cropper or a grazer. They have land and there's an issue that they would like to fix. So usually, you can advance the slide now, Heidi or Amy. They would go to the county and talk to their county agent about an issue, whatever that issue is. And I'm going to point out the Farmers Protecting Rice Creek. First word, farmers. All right, this wasn't the DNR, the government rolling in to say we're going to fix Rice Creek. It's the farmers, the landowners, the grazers that came to different components within that local watershed. And Rice Creek is about 1 hour south of the Twin Cities in Minnesota. So as we zoom in on this, think about where you are on the planet. Is it flat? Is it hilly? Is it ravine? But before we talk about Rice Creek in Minnesota, I can specifically show you that there has been awesome projects in 7 Mile Creek watershed 10 years ago where we had ravine, head cut, erosion, which happens everywhere. But we were looking at helping producers protect the top of the bluff from eroding and more so into the ravine. So these projects didn't necessarily come from Fishers and Farmers. They came from the farmer themselves who went to the county agent, in this case, the SWCD, Soil Water Conservation District in Minnesota, asking for help. And, they found Fishers and Farmers through networking. We were able to provide some seed grant money and award that particular project money to kick off a whole series of ravine stabilization projects. I was part of that. And I can honestly say it was widely successful. Did it fix every ravine? No, but we certainly addressed a lot of erosion that was happening right at the nick point. Okay, advance, please. So in Minnesota, on the screen, you'll see these watersheds. This is, again, about an hour south of the Twin Cities. The darker red, the entire watershed you're looking at is called the Cannon River watershed, and it flows north and then easterly into the Mississippi River, which is that blue line in the upper right quadrant. So water flows from left to right on your screen. If you look at the word rice, right, in Rice County, that's about the project area I'll be talking about. Advance, please. The grazing, the operations there run from soybean, lots of corn, soybean, some cattle operations, and some other organic operations. So the farmers in Rice Creek watershed, which is a very small watershed, roughly somewhere around 5,000 acres. It's a sub-watershed of Rice Creek that flows into the Cannon River. And the Cannon River was that big watershed I showed you. The farmers were really interested in cover cropping, and this was about 10 years ago. Cover cropping, in the Midwest was like, well, we're not sure it's going to work in Minnesota. It's too cold. Soils are too cold. And, everybody was testing it out. But here, the farmers had, if you look at all the different partners on the right side of your screen, they went to the county, they went to the colleges, they went to the DNRs and the soil and water conservation districts. Just say, we would like to try some cover cropping on our land. And the goal for Clean River Partners, which is this watershed group in the Cannon, they worked with the landowners to help fund cover cropping projects. Again, the thinking was 10 years ago. Then about 4 years ago, they actually implemented the projects. There was somewhere around 10 farmers that came together, formed their own group, which is exactly what we want Fishers and Farmers to do, is have landowners take the lead. Landowners should run these projects. And but we are here to help with guidance, project development, and really a little bit of seed money to get it going. So partnerships, collaboration, and engagement, keywords there. I mean, you can't do it alone. We know that. That's really the core mission of the Fishers and Farmers, is to be there as a safety net to help a producer, help a landowner group solve some issues on maybe stream stabilization, some bank erosion. In this case, advance, please. The cover cropping, we all know about it now, what it can do for soil structure, soil health, but there's a risk to the landowners, and they were willing to do that. So that's where we were able to identify the landowners were taking the risk. We needed to help move it along. And the neat thing about this watershed in the city of Northfield, you have St. Olaf College, which their environmental science and chemistry department was willing to step forward and take their students out and help do monitoring. We'll talk about that later. But we had academia engaged. We had the Minnesota DNR, my shop was engaged, because Rice Creek is the only natural self-sustaining, natural reproducing brook trout stream in that part of Rice County, really that part of the state. Natural self-sustaining brook trout populations are pretty rare in and of themselves. So that was telling us something right away. We have a unique fishery, and we should all want to protect the fishery, which means protecting everything around it, from water quality to sustainable farming that is prosperous. Advance, please. The students we talked about at St. Olaf College, their professor would take them out, and it's, if you've been through college limnology classes or environmental ed studies, it's simply getting these 18 to 22-year-olds in the stream and understanding the health of a stream. What's in a stream? What is an invertebrate? What does this really mean? I don't understand it. But having them take water quality samples and learn from the natural surroundings, that was helpful, because we were training younger students on why it's necessary to protect streams. But being in the stream in and of itself, you have to think about what's happening on the landscape that's affecting whether the water is clear and dirty, and then what kind of invertebrates and bugs are in the stream. Advance, please. Simple grid here. This was just the genus species of invertebrates in the stream. Pretty simple matrix here, but for the students in the college, they got to learn about this, but it was on the account of they're studying one component of this project of cover cropping that the farmers started. And the farmers really understood, all right, if I cover crop, I'm really looking at reducing nitrogen as number one. Nitrogen inputs into the stream. I'm trying to address the sedimentation from these slopes that are roughly 1 to maybe up to 9%, but it isn't that hilly. But nonetheless, and then a lot of this area is tiled. So, there's there's a lot going on that we understand in the Midwest, is how we use our land, how we grow our commodity crops, and how that affects water quality. It all hangs together. But this was the outreach educational component that really brought Fishers and Farmers. The steering committee focused on, hey, this isn't just a practice that the farmers are doing. It's now expanded to The local SWC is involved, which, by the way, Rice County SWC, thankfully, they twice put cash match on the table for this project. It wasn't in kind, it was cash. And when you look at any requests for proposal, everybody wants to know, where's your match coming? Where's the money coming? How are we going to make this a bigger, better, broader partnership? Those partners I showed earlier, someone brought, whether it was in-kind cost share or cash or some other small grant. That's why this particular project was successful, and it still is. Next, please. The goal of the cover cropping project that the farmers chose here was, the goal was to reduce nitrogen by some percent. Their goal was about 30% reduction. And they were measuring, they were taking tile water coming out at the ditches or in the stream, measuring tile in control sites and then actual sites from the cover crop fields. And they were over, they had the pre-data and the during and after data, but they're able to capture what everybody was looking for, show me the data. But this is just a simple graphic from the Clean River Partners showing that they indeed showed a 30% reduction in nitrogen inputs into the stream. And the key is if you look on the y-axis, the nitrate in milligrams per liters, parts per million, it's down around and below 10 parts per million, which is that threshold for health, safe drinking water. We want to lower our nitrogen at least below 10 parts per million. So clearly within a year or two, they just saw a difference. Cover cropping in this watershed was working. Now, I'm not trying to sell cover crops for you guys. It's just simply that the farmers wanted to do a project within a small watershed that was measurable, and they got good results. Next, please. And it took the local SWCD and the Clean River Partners, Al, give a shout out to Al Kraus, who really helped coordinate, lead this thing with everybody and keep it tied together, and still is. They were able to take information that we were collecting from the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, some work that Al had, water sampling Al did, and along with his St. Olaf students. But this is just a snapshot of I wish Al was on the call, but this is his slide, but it was kind of the corn and bean look, because when farming was in cover crops or without cover crops, there's always a risk, but it was pretty darn close. A lot of the cover crop fields were performing pretty darn good with yield, and the farmer had to realize, I might lose 10 or 20 bushels per acre, but the goal was they wanted to protect the stream. So everybody may have a different look at that, but the data was clear that the cover cropping was reducing nitrates into the stream. Next, please. That might be it. But I will say, we'll take some questions in a second. I'm just giving you one snapshot. Again, I'm not trying to sell cover crops. These practices could be anything, but what we said earlier is it has to be on streams, rivers, and watersheds. Fishes and Farmers, unfortunately, does not deal with land and riparian projects around lakes. I wish we could, but we're more specific to streams and the health of streams. And it depends on how we treat the land within a watershed that impacts the streams. And again, Jack Lauer being the fishery scientist and career with the DNR, I can tell you all about the health of a stream, a fishery. Is it, is it full of undesirable fish, or we have a quality fishery? That's what I manage, but I can't do that in the stream unless there's help on the ground in a watershed where we're seeing improvement. And while we see improvement in some sub-watersheds, we also still are battling major, impairments across the Midwest, across the nation. And, if we find shiny nuggets within watersheds where we can make a difference, when I say we as everybody, where we can make improvements, that's a big goal. So I'll stop there. Heidi, Amy, is this question period or where are we at?
This is the time for question and answer. So I encourage everybody, this is a casual conversation. Turn your videos on, unmute yourself if there's not a ton of background noise. We're people too. So this is just meant to be a very, very casual conversation where we can answer any questions or concerns that you might have. Now's the time to ask. Dave, I see you have your hands up. or your hand up. Why don't you go ahead? You start us off here. You're on mute though, Dave. Dave, I gotta stop you here. You're on mute.
Start all over.
There you go.
Finally, I apologize. My name is Dave Bettner, and I'm with the Isaac Walton League, the Minnesota Division, and its Upper Mississippi River Initiative. And Jack, when you talked about that good project on Rice Creek and the modest drop in yield and how well it worked, is there a way for us with our project to put in a matrix that's accurate, showing input reductions on that corn that was interseeded in the cover crop, and diesel fuel reductions, herbicide application reductions, and I'm encouraged to believe with my bias that the bottom line for that project was not a slight reduction. It probably was more net income to the producers. That's a bias on my part, but shouldn't we be trying to do that as we demonstrate our project?
Yeah, Dave, I think that directed that to me. This is Jack. I have Brandon Nittings from the Iowa Soybean that might be able to back me up, but I mean, I agree. Any project, you want to see the data, you want to see the outcomes, positive, negative, and then move on. That's what the science is about it. But this one, I think we went into it knowing there's probably going to be market change in nitrogen reduction. I don't think phosphorus moved much, and the literature suggests that. I think on well, again, it depends on temperate zones, soils, grade, everything. But the key to Fishes, well, not the key. The Fishes and Farmers was able to provide grant money. Really, it was the Soil and Water Conservation District and the producers themselves that laid out some of those metrics you're after, Dave. In Minnesota, we have the Minnesota Department of Ag. Certainly the county agents that in the FFSA, they want to know and help producers improve production, whatever that is. So they're the ones that are going to integrate that into their work. They may capture that in the application to Fishes and Farmers, but our goal in Fishes and Farmers isn't to go back and critique, hey, you didn't meet your goal. We're cheering for the applicant, and we want to see the producer be successful on whatever project it is. But to mine data, as you suggest, at a broader scale, certainly I know probably every ag industry is out there working on it, and every agency is working on continuously collecting data to see what practices are improving soil health and, say, water quality.
Thanks, Jack. Thank you.
Any of our other guests have any questions, or maybe if you don't have questions about the application and the process, if you want to talk a little bit about your project, and we can try to clarify how your particular project might fall into our priorities. Don't be shy.
Well,
I guess I'll just introduce myself if it's all right.
Yeah.
I'm Clark Bowling with the Missouri Rural Water Association, and I'm their source water specialist for the state of Missouri. And sorry about my dirty kitchen, but we work out of our house and out of our trucks. I do a lot of, I have a range simulator that go around and do to schools. We have a apprenticeship program. We've now allowed FFA students to actually become an apprenticeship. Most of our organization is, of course, water and sewer treatment, but it goes right along, treating that good to make the streams healthy. But I've written a lot of articles for our magazine here in Missouri called water lines, about buffer zones, and all the plants and stuff that helps take down nitrates in the soil. And being a farm guy, boy like myself, it's hard to get a farmer that's paid. I don't know how much ground cost up there, but you're looking at $20,000 an acre, and make it beneficial for them. But I guess my biggest deal, and I've only been doing this for about 2.5 years now, and some of the actual state and federally funded lakes in Missouri that were just built for water intake for to treat and give to people, why they didn't keep some of the ground around it. That just seems like, I'm not trying to have the government get a handle on it, but especially in your buffer zone, why they don't keep that ground. That way they can kind of regulate that themselves, instead of letting, like I said, I'm a farm boy, but letting the farmer just farm right up to the stream, But anyway, that's my question. I just wonder why, if they went through all that trouble of giving money to build these reservoirs, why didn't they keep some of the property around it that was theirs to start with? Just an idea.
Yeah, Clark, thanks for that. I will say, if you're familiar with strips, basically came out of Iowa, those are just big buffer pollinator strips. We all know the importance of having them, for wildlife purposes, but certainly as a filtration system near riparian areas. But you're possibly taking some good land out of production. So,
Right.
There's a choice that has to be made just by the producer right out of the gate. We at Fishes and Farmers, Heidi put up on the screen all the different criteria we look at to score an applicant. And if it's a smaller watershed, say under 20,000 acres, that's manageable. But if it's a watershed that's 50 or 100,000 acres, a big flat watershed, pretty hard to tame that with just a few projects. So that's another thing is it's easier to work in smaller catchments. But the practices are many, and again, most of the work up until now has been on private land, which means someone's talking to the landowner and drumming up the type of practices they want to do that will show these improvements. Those on the call that are, if they, like Amy just asked, if you have a topic, an idea that you want to put forward, please ask us now. Say, I got this. What do you think? Will this work? Share it with us.
Right. And I know, like I said, one of my articles, I really went into some of the funding actually for pollinator plants and for, your monarch butterfly. There's plants for them. And believe it or not, most of them they thrive on nitrates, and really, really push that in those articles, not to take away from the farmer. Like I said, I live right in the middle of a farming community, and my family owns 1,400 acres. It's hard to get them to get their head around that idea of turning that, kind of like CRP ground. That was a big deal, 15 years ago, and I get why they did it. But, yeah, next to we got some really nice streams here in Missouri. A lot of them are spring fed, so there isn't a lot of problem with that. But yeah, you get down the Boot Hill, northern Missouri, you can certainly see the soil erosion and what the rivers look like because of that.
Does anyone else want to share project ideas that they kind of have in the hopper? Not afraid to call people out. So Sydney, I feel like I should call on you just because your face is right here. So like you just you're up.
I had an opportunity to talk to Heidi earlier in the fall, and it felt like there was so much time. I was like, oh, I so much time to think about this. And I'm definitely still kind of in that headspace with a little bit less time. But yeah, I guess a lot of my personal friends are also kind of I'm in with the Coon Creek Community Watershed Council, and a lot of my friends are, working with the Wisconsin River Alliance and like all these different nonprofits. So we've had like a lot of personal conversations, but like, oh my gosh, this would be so cool to write a grant about, but we haven't like actually formally sat down and thought about like what this would look like, or if it's worth pursuing at this venue. But Coon Creek is facing this widespread dam decommissioning right now, which is kind of unique and unprecedented, but probably something that is going to happen in a lot of places shortly with these flood control dams that are aging out, and frankly, liability to the government and to these communities. Yeah, so we're facing this decommissioning situation. So they're basically going to remove as much of the dam as it's cost effective to, but they're not staging a full removal. And they're doing this at 23 dams in the Kickapoo and the West Fork Kickapoo and Coon Creek watershed within the next 5 years. And I'm really curious about the potential for restoration in those decommissioned spots, because I don't know that that's necessarily part of the decommissioning strategy. I think is to get the dam out, but it's not to like do a dam removal or a restoration project there, especially something that, could link to fish habitat or flood attenuation or someplace where those things merge. And, these dams are positioned at spots that are that kind of these inflection points at the landscape where you're moving from this flat ridge tops, like the flat valley floors and the driftless, and then you have these like steep ravine pitches. That's where a lot of these dams are situated. So like conceptually, it's interesting connecting between like the uplands and the lowlands, and you have this inflection point where it feels like there's a lot of energy in these spaces. And anyway, so the idea that many of us have been cooking is how can we restore, even like pilot a restoration at one of these dam decommissioning sites. And I wonder if this feels like an appropriate venue for that project. And if it's not, I feel like we have so many other ideas that we could pitch here, but yeah, I wanted to run that past you.
I can field that a little bit. Just wanted to say, in the past, we've funded everything from WASCOB's water and sediment control basins to, controlled drainage to ravine stabilization. We worked in 7 Mile watershed over in Minnesota, and that was one of the major issues that they faced was, water going down these steep ravines into the trout stream. Jack knows all about. Jack was there and working on that project as well. But and so impacts to that trout stream were a big concern. And so one of the things I just wanted to say with fishers and farmers too is sometimes the projects are kind of new and outside the box, but we're all about that, trying to figure out and maybe do a demonstration project, and it can be just a baby step to see if it works. And the other thing I wanted to mention too is we like to be there for the long haul. We don't want to do just a shotgun approach and just fun projects everywhere. We want to pick a watershed and stay working there and stay working with what you need, not come in and lead it, but come in and provide what resources you need from the ground up. We really believe in the grassroots, ground up, not top down. I've just seen a lot more success working in the federal government from these community projects where the farmers are leading, where the community members, the businesses are bringing in match too. Don't forget about those businesses that can bring in match. It's not just agencies. So I'm willing to think outside the box, and I know our steering committee members are really willing to get down in the trenches with you as well. We have Brad Sims from Wisconsin DNR, Sydney, that can reach out to you and kind of discuss some of these things. Matt Mitro was on our steering committee. So I'm willing to put you in contact with who you need. So feel free to reach out. I know Amy put my contact in the chat, and it's also on our website. So feel free anytime, call me, email me, Teams me. I'm willing to talk this out. You're not alone. And I can't guarantee you that you will receive funding, but we are willing to help you through some of these big issues. And the cool thing is sometimes we learn something from one state that we can apply in another state. And so that's really fun. That's where the steering committee members really love to chip in and help and provide some guidance and resources.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Definitely. I did see Michael Wrights had his hand up first, and then Jack Lauer.
Sure, yeah, I can introduce the project I was talking about. I don't know if Jack had a comment on the last one, but if you wanted to, okay. So yeah, I'm the restoration ecologist with Mississippi Valley Conservancy based out of La Crosse as well. I manage the Plum Creek property, so its namesake is the Plum Creek, just on the Kickapoo, north of the confluence with Wisconsin, outside Wazeeka. One thing we're really interested in doing is reconnecting the stream with the floodplain. And doing that in partnership. We've talked a lot with Kirk Olson out of La Crosse, fisheries biologist, and Tracy Haynes with Wisconsin Wetlands Institute. And we're kind of interested in, I guess, like a less conventional approach where we're lifting the bottom of the stream up through like vortex weirs to get water over the floodplain. And just kind of exploring that as a restoration option. And some of the things that we'll need to get that moving forward. Kirk would help implement a lot of the projects, being our neighbor. But we would need an easement to get the access to them, an H&H study. It's also currently being grazed, and we work with Savannah Institute to move towards rotational grazing. So I guess we have like a lot of different things that could all come together, but I'm trying to think of the best approach for this particular grant opportunity, if it's just a yes everything or focus more on one piece of that puzzle.
Jack, did you want to answer that, or did you want me to?
Well, yeah, I'll be real quick on that one, and then.
Okay.
So thanks for that, Mike. First call is to Heidi. If you don't know, call Heidi. You mentioned easement. We haven't been funding easements, but we basically fund a lot of the other practice. And you mentioned a couple of unique things like geomorph stuff in the stream. We have to examine that, and that's where Heidi would talk to you first to just listen a little bit more on the categories you're looking to propose. And then she might say, well, you need to talk to this Wisconsin DNR hydrologist. And you're going to say, yeah, we already did. But this is where the magic of the Fishes and Farmers is connecting people to get more resources to get the project done. That's really what's been happening. And these have been small grants from us, 20,000, 30,000. But that match is important. I can speak to Minnesota a little bit now. It's been over a decade, but people say, oh yeah, I've heard of Fishes and Farmers. But then when they connect the dots, that project on Rice Creek leveraged this money, and then they got some legacy money from the one little project turned out to be a big deal. On Rice Creek, I didn't mention, I will now. The farmers, because their choice to go cover cropping bled into the adjacent watersheds of Heath and Wolf Creek watershed. Now that a bigger community wants to do the same work because, again, they're choosing to do that type of production. And they've come back to us for additional monies, but it makes sense. And then if it doesn't make sense, we'll let you know that too. But I wanted to just stress, if you're on the call or share with your colleagues, Fishes and Farmers, if you go to our website, and if you spend a half hour, do it and watch some podcasts, watch a couple of videos, understand the commitment and what really did happen and does happen. And, don't shy away from the RFP that's 6 or 8 pages long. I would say call Heidi or Amy first and say, I have an idea. What do you think? We can advance that with you quickly. We may have somebody that says, talk to this Iowa. They just did the same thing that was funded 2 years ago. And you can talk to them offline, but don't shy away from making that call or reach out to Heidi and Amy first. That's their job as co-coordinators of FFP.
I just wanted a quick answer too to Michael. We can do pieces of a project, or we've done entire projects before too. With that, we bumped the ceiling up to $100,000. We don't tend to fund that many 100,000. We haven't really done that expensive of one. I think so far it's 75,000. But depending on what you're looking at, we might look at one that's as high as $100,000 too. I think it would be good maybe just to sometime get together and talk a little bit more about it. There's some really great stuff there, and I know a lot of the groups in Wisconsin are struggling with H&H, or hydraulics and hydrology studies now. That's kind of new with climate change and everything that's been going on. And Sydney knows, everything that happened in the Coon Creek and how that 12-inch rainfall just blew out the streams. And so now, some of those permitting and H&H and everything else that goes into some of these projects are starting to bump up the projects. And so we definitely need to talk about that and work on that. And I can pull in other fish habitat partnerships too. I didn't mention that a whole lot earlier, but Sarah Strassman works for the DARE partnership in Wisconsin in the Driftless area. And so there might be an opportunity too where we could do a joint project with Fishers and Farmers and DARE, especially in the Driftless area. And so that's another opportunity. Or there's the reservoir partnership that does fish projects on reservoirs. And there's also Midwest Glacial Lakes that does lake projects. So we have a lot of different resources that we could possibly, if we Fishers and Farmers can't fund it, we can also point you to other fish habitat partnerships that are involved in some of the states too. So I'm willing to talk through all of these issues. I know some of it can be overwhelming and seem like a lot, but I'm willing to help with permitting and different things like that. Reaching out, we have a lot of resources. So feel free to visit our website, see all of our resources on a resource page. Feel free to give Amy and I or any of the steering committee members a call or email. We're willing to help work through some of these things. And it might happen where it's a big project and it might not be ready to go for 25. Well, we can put it on our radar for the next RFP, request for proposals. So we're willing to work with you on this.
Well, it's 4:01. Does anybody have, I don't want to keep anybody's, I want to be respectful of time here. Does anybody have any last minute questions or concerns that we can address? If not, like Heidi said, just reach out to us. Like we as a partnership, we pride ourselves on having that connection and kind of being the middleman when it comes to connecting you with other groups or connecting you with other agencies, connecting you with other resources. So if we can't necessarily, find the answer, we'll help find the people who can answer those questions. So I appreciate everybody's time. Thank you to Jack and Heidi. You guys are great. And everybody else, we have another webinar scheduled for next Monday at 11 a.m. So it's kind of going to be the same format. If you think it's beneficial for you to sit in on a second one, please feel free. There might be other things that come out of that second webinar conversation that weren't discussed in this one. So we'd encourage you to participate in both if you're able. That's all I got. Thank you guys again. Have a happy Thanksgiving. Appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Feel free to call me.
Thank you. Thanks for
Happy
joining.
Thanksgiving, everybody.
Yep. See you, Mike.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Gobble,
Yeah.
gobble.